If you're like me, you've probably read all kinds of self-help books, taken the courses, and done all the trying to meditate and trying to figure this out to deal with chronic illness or chronic pain or both. And sometimes we need a little bit of assistance to have a therapeutic guide to help us illuminate some of these deeper corners in our mind and transform our relationship with our thoughts. And one of the ways that we can do this, I talk about as this therapeutic power of self observation and exposing the light of our conscious thinking and the power of words, power of language to be able to do that. So, we're going to continue our journey into metaphors as medicine, where you become the archaeologist of your own mind and you can unearth some of these limiting beliefs and replace them with others that propel you towards a more fulfilling, consciously aware life. And know this transformation does not happen overnight, but every step of the path of consciousness is a step towards more inner freedom. And so we continue the discussion about the relationship with our body and our health being influenced by these patterns and how we respond to its signals or symptoms or flares, and what we decide to do about our self-care or how hard we push through are rooted in these patterns from early ages, and they shape our thinking and our bodily experience in profound and sometimes limiting ways. So allow yourself to explore what we're going to talk about with curiosity and compassion. And you can revisit previous episodes where we talked about fears of constantly getting sick or staying sick or never getting well, and tearing down that core belief that your body is not reliable and learning to trust in a new belief. Or another episode where we try to tackle the cultural, societal norm that we should feel guilty for resting, that we have to be productive. And, what if we flipped that script on that thought? And instead of that rest is being lazy, that rest is a productive act, like metaphorically that you would do for your cell phone. You would never go out without a way to recharge your cell phone. And that battery that's so critical to you having that device in your hand, keeping you informed. Why would we ever do this to our body and go out when we're at 20%? So pay attention to those episodes and the exercises that we're offering there to, change your mind about some of these things. But today we're going to talk about the self-sabotage that we can do to our own self as we try to establish healthy habits. We're trying to heal, we're trying to build new habits, we're trying to do all the things beyond what the doctors say to do and what the prescriptions say to do. It's like, I'm going to be in charge of me, and I'm going to, whatever it is that I'm going to do, I'm going to drink more water with electrolytes. I'm going to take more walks or spend more time with my loved ones or my pet or get in nature or whatever it is. It's not easy. And we can so often self-sabotage this tendency that we get to abandon a new healthy regimen at any slight setback. And sometimes they say people that have this pattern are kind of getting an all or nothing mindset. Like if I miss one day of exercise, then oh well, forget that I've been going to the gym for months. Or gosh forbid you eat that unplanned dessert and then you scrap your diet plan for the next 4 days. Or you have a terrible night's sleep like I did last night. and you're not paying attention to your sleep hygiene anymore. All of these things happen, completely normal, but it's a definitive form of self-sabotage and even perfectionism that paradoxically can move us away from these well-being goals that we're actually pursuing. So let's assign some before root thoughts and a way to flip it into the new belief. And then we'll look at a metaphor to how we might be able to do this. So if your core thought is, well, if I fail once, I've already lost. That's a deep-seated belief that can originate from experiences where your worth was linked to some form of perfect performance. Maybe it was grades when you were a child, or sports, or it may stem from family or educational environments where mistakes were really criticized, or where recognition was only given for near or flawless results. And this thought can create like a binary system where only perfect success or the opposite, total failure, exist. What if you had a new belief where each day was a new opportunity? And despite whatever setback, change, modification, or dessert you ate, it didn't make today a bad day, and tomorrow is always a new opportunity. And this new perspective recognizes the cyclical and progressive nature of genuine and real change. It understands that small errors are actually an inherent part of a transformation process and no indication of any form of failure. And this change in belief allows for a more flexible and compassionate relationship with yourself during this journey as you're trying to get on for better well-being goals and healthier habits. So I offer you this metaphor as medicine of the idea of a garden that blooms only after the storm. And I think this perfectly captures this idea because when a storm hits a garden, some plants may bend or lose leaves or break or get tattered and torn down, but it certainly doesn't mean the garden is destroyed. And with the rain that's coming in, it's actually feeding the nutrients underneath, but it takes a little bit of time for that to process. So with that proper care and time, it not only recovers, but emerges stronger with deeper roots. And these temporary setbacks are part of the growth process, not its end. So if you imagine this garden that blooms after a storm, let's try an exercise where you too can resume a habit after a simple slip up. So the next time that you interrupt any form of healthy habit, you skip a day of exercise or eat off plan, consciously commit to resuming the next day without any form of self-punishment or perfectionist tendencies or inner critic voices allowing to shame you. Maybe even write it on a piece of paper or a sticky note. I recognize this slip up is part of my path, and tomorrow I continue to grow. And put this note where you can see it on your mirror or on your phone, and remind yourself to fulfill this commitment to yourself. This kind of positive affirmation leads to more positive outcomes because you think about all the negative self-talk that's going on in our brain and all the ways our inner critic is constantly just na 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 in our ear and in our mind and in our head saying how we've been broken or dismissed or unloved or whatever your inner critic is saying to you. What if you tried to feed those messages back to yourself in a positive way and remind yourself that you can resume a healthy habit? You are a garden that can bloom even after a storm. And this will challenge any form of abandonment pattern and create an actual new neural pathway in the brain. The more you replay that message in your head, the more that tape gets rewired and associates that error with an opportunity to restart rather than definitive failure. So, by practicing this continuity after any mistake, greater resilience and flexibility in the face of these inevitable challenges of habit change that are going to gradually develop, just remind yourself, I can always start again. And that phrase reminds us of the regenerative power inherent in each new dawn of each new day. Because true strength lies not in the unattainable perfection, but in the ability to get up and continue after each fall. By incorporating this perspective and this message of I can always start again, slip-ups cease to be a source of shame or abandonment, and in turn become valuable lessons within a path of continuous growth. And that lasting transformation cannot arise from any sort of perfect behavioral sequence, but are imperfect yet persistent efforts where we don't self-sabotage. We allow a slip up and we know I can always start again. Thank you for joining me on this transformative journey where we take language and metaphors as medicine to try to battle with some of the stripes we zebras wear, some publicly, some privately, some we're ashamed to show. I thank you for being here with me.